Hey y'all, and welcome to our Finished Off Friday. Today is April 27th, and I think there are 5 things that I have to share with you this week. Granted, none of these, except for one, were done this week. They actually were all done in previous months, and I'm not exactly sure if I've already shared things with you, but we'll just kind of backtrack on. 2 of them are pretty much the same thing, just in 2 different colorways, so it'll be a lot like last Friday. I think I shared about 4 items then, so we'll share another 4/5 items today. So to start off this week, we will share my newly completed item. This was for a test that I am doing. The pattern is already live. It was live when I tested it. I think her tests are more to bring awareness to the pattern and to bring up its favorability or whatnot. It is a free pattern, and I did go back and check, and all her patterns are free, or at least the ones that are in this series with the dishcloths. And this is, I think, the final one of the series. I believe it's number 4, and it's a lilac washcloth. And this uses some unique stitching. I would not suggest this to a beginner because of the stitching uniqueness. I guess you probably could work it flat and then it wouldn't be a difficult pattern, but because you work basically in the back 2 loops for a lot of the pattern, like basically beyond the first row, or first round rather, it is difficult. I could not work into the back loops of my single crochets, so I think it actually worked out really nice, and I probably should go back and make sure that the pattern said for all stitches. I didn't actually do that yet, but I decided I would work in the top 2 loops for the single crochets and then try to work the back 2 loops, because honestly it is not an easy thing to do, and I did my best. So the half double crochets I found a lot easier than doing the double crochets, but it's a nice, I think it looks really nice. It's got a nice textured lines that go through each petal, and then I think it looks really good with my 2 loops on the single crochet being the top of the stitch, because it kind of gives it that flowered petaled texture. You know, I guess I've played a lot with flower petals, so I kind of think it fits very well for its theme. And these are to fit a book series. I believe it was the Terry Pratchett Discworld. I don't have any knowledge of the series, but I did this washcloth for the pattern test. Actually, I never did measure it. I should do that. So I am measuring, let's see, which way do we want it? We're going to go from the center of each, I guess, top of the petal. So that will probably be the longest measurement. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I believe it was supposed to be 9 inches. So I came out pretty much exact on that one. And just FYI, a fun little tip, you may need to actually measure your fingers to see if this works for you, but I have done it with mine. I actually got this tip when I was a lot younger, and it was not related to crochet work at all, but your first 2 fingers are approximately 1 inch, and I've found that very true for myself. So when I measure things, I just go from hand to hand, 1, 2, and put one hand right next to the other for the 2 fingers, just the first 2 fingers. And that is how I measure things, and why you hear me count aloud, because I just laid this on my desk and just went 1, 2, 3, 4, next to each other. And this pattern is made by Brenda's of Sonne Knits. That's S-O-N-N-E. And I guess I didn't check the spelling, but I assume that's K-N-I-T-S. Maybe it's K-I-N-T-Z. I'll go check. Okay, yes, that is Brenda's of Sonne Knits, and it is K-N-I-T-S. Moving on to our next finished object of the week, we have, I finished this the second week of February. I feel like I've talked about this, but maybe that was just because I talked about the cal that I entered it into. And it is my Lacy Swing cardigan, and it was a free pattern. I originally found it on Hirschners.com for the Cotton Fair yarn. I believe it is the suggested yarn for this pattern, and so I had gotten it from that. It was either for that exact yarn or it was for a similar yarn when I was getting ideas for cardigans, but I'm pretty sure it came from the Cotton Fair page on Hirschners. But it was also linked to in Ravelry, so I do have it linked in my project page. I think I do need to update my notes, but it was worked with an e-hook. I did it in the red colorway of, like I said, Cotton Fair yarn. Oh, I guess I never said on the washcloth. The washcloth was made with hot orange, I believe it's sugars and cream, and an eye hook. But back to my cardigan. I actually did some modifications with the sizing for this. Pretty much the only modification was the exact sizing. I worked 2 different sizes simultaneously, if that makes any sense. I worked the largest size for the length for the armholes because I thought the armholes seemed like they were going to be really, really tiny, and it's not a huge difference, but I wanted to have more armhole length because I have really small shoulders, but I don't have skinny arms, so I wanted the larger armhole, and I worked the medium size for the actual width and length of things. So it was a fairly easy pattern to adjust that way. So I would recommend, if you're going to try, that it's not a super difficult thing to engineer yourself. And then I worked it as one piece for the top section. It's actually supposed to be worked as, I think, 5 separate pieces. Like, it had a separate piece for the underarm of both sides, and then a front piece for both sides, and then a back piece. And I just went all the way along. You work up and down, or you work vertically. Is that the right way? Yeah, so you work up and down vertically from, like, I worked it from the front chest part. Is that right? Now I'm trying to remember. Or did I connect on? I think I worked the back. Sorry guys, it's been a couple months almost now, so I'm trying to remember things. I worked the back piece, and then I added to that the underarm because you pretty much just stop working certain stitches because I didn't want to have to go back and sew on pieces. And so I did that, and then I just chained out for the front piece and then had to kind of connect up in the shoulder for the 2 pieces, and then I just went ahead and attached to the other side, or the bottom part, from the one side that was left unworked from, well, it was worked. Anyways, it's hard to explain if I'm not actually physically showing you, but I just went ahead and worked it going the other way. So I both have the same stitches on the center, which is kind of what I wanted. I didn't want to have one side that was starting in the center and then the other one that was ending in the center, which is what would have happened if I had done it the way I first started describing, which is why I knew that wasn't what I did. But yeah, other than that, figuring out mentally how to connect those pieces, it really wasn't difficult work. And then you just went around it from that you attach your yarn to, and then start working horizontally or as a normal like sweater pattern. So part of it the stripes go up and down, and part of it the stripes go side to side, if that makes any sense. I hope it does, because not the best at explaining what I mean. And then when you finish off, you go all the way around. So again, you have some change of stripe direction, but I think it looks really good, and I do plan on making more of these, which is part of the yarn haul that I have coming in the mail. And it does use a cap sleeve, which was my first cap sleeve that I have ever made. I probably would have preferred it to have a little bit longer of a sleeve, but I thought I could work it like the rest of it, but I didn't think I wanted my sleeve to be running in two different directions for the striping, and I didn't want to have to work out how to work that, so it actually went the same way for striping. So I just decided I would leave it as a cap sleeve, and yeah, so that's basically it for my lacy swing cardigan. Then I did my pair of nitty knockers. This is a crocheted pattern for the nitty knockers, and this was from a cal that is being run, I think, for a couple more days in the Cozy Cottage Crochet. Geez, now I don't have it right in front of me, and I'm having the same problem everyone else has with saying her name. But yeah, in that podcast with the Nitty Knocker Cal, I did my pair, and the pattern is kind of weird. It suggests to have 3 stitch markers, and I just used one, but it does involve a lot of counting for me because I can't just kind of follow the visuals, which I think it would be hard for anyone who was doing the pattern to follow it visually anyways. But so yeah, I was hoping that this would be kind of one of those mindless crochet projects that I could just have in my purse all the time and just keep on going and going and going. But because of its counting aspect, it's a lot more like socks for me, and it takes a lot of focus. So I don't really suggest it for a mindless working project. But other than that, it wasn't a terrible pattern to work. I think I did rip out a couple rounds, but that was just because I wanted it to look more even, or I figured out that I was doing the increase wrong or something. So I just went back a couple rows. It wasn't like I was halfway done and then restarted like I know lots of other people had to do with this. And yeah, it's been a while since I worked the pattern. Again, this has probably been a month and a half since I worked this pattern, so I'm not really remembering exact. I did use the crochet hook suggested, I believe, and I use Patton's Grace yarn, which is 100% cotton yarn, and I did it in the neutral or natural, something like that, colorway. And lastly, this is the 2-for-1 special. I have 2 granny square blankets. Now this was only supposed to be 1 granny square blanket, but my first one, the unicorn mandala cake, this mandala cake was the worst mandala cake I have ever seen. I have worked with a few, and this one had so many splits in the yarn. It was absolutely ridiculous. Just in the final round of going around it, I think I had something like 6-7 splits, and altogether there was anywhere between a dozen to 20 breaks in this yarn. I honestly just completely didn't care and lost track of counting because I was just so fed up. And because of this, there is no way that I could give this to the intended party because, yeah, new mom does not need to worry about washing things and having them become unraveled because the yarn was so splitty and so many ends, like 1 end, 2 ends, 3 ends, which is I think all they're supposed to have is 3 ends. I was willing to give it 6 ends, so that's kind of where I stopped counting. But I was willing to give it more of the cuts because it is a 150 gram cake instead of 100 grams like a lot of skeins of yarn. So I think it was beautiful, but it's turned into a cat blanket because, again, I just can't give it away. Then I need to check and make sure that this is the color that I think it is. I believe this is the Valkyrie colorway, also a mandala cake. And these will be going with, or this one will be going with the Spirit colorway of my mandala, and I still need to get these out in the mail, but they are washed and sitting waiting to be mailed. But yeah, so this one was a lot better to work. I do think it had a split maybe in the yarn. I can't even remember because, again, it's been a while since I worked it, and with the memory of the other one being so terrible, all these other things that I'm noticing split ends in are just being like not remembered. Anyways, yeah, so that's all my finished objects for the week. Please, again, feel free to come over to the Ravelry group to share your finished objects. We do have a chatter thread that is not just for crafty goodness, but I would appreciate to see your projects, and of course, if it is using a mandala cake or any other kind of cake for that matter, you can feel free to post it in our Cakewalk Cal thread. Anyways, guys, I need to go get some things done because my husband is taking a couple hours off work today since he had to work late on Wednesday. So I need to go get some stuff done before he gets home and things get busy, because cross your fingers, we are going on a bike ride today. So yeah, we'll talk to you later, guys.